Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Paul, who was a resident of Grenfell Tower before the disastrous fire occurred, killing a confirmed 71 people and injuring another 70, burning for over 60 hours before the fire departments managed to completely extinguish it. The cause of the fire is believed to have been a faulty refrigerator. However, there are a number of other factors influencing the rapid growth and sheer magnitude, including the cladding of the building, which had been a much lower safety standard than it should have been. Whilst the fire may have ultimately been started by a faulty refrigerator, the use of inappropriate and unsafe building materials was a large contributor in the magnitude of the fire. What do you think this has to say about certain companies and individuals, that we've reached a point where we value our money more than we value the safety of others?
I think, first of all, it sort of entails and says that people are trying to cut corners instead of actually caring about people's lives. And I personally think it's quite disgusting, actually, the fact that the richest borough in Europe and one of the richest boroughs in the world cut corners in such a cost. And I think it's come out that if they did buy a less flammable sort of cladding for the building, I think it would have cost in total an extra £5,000, if that. And I think for £5,000 more to have more fire resistant sort of cladding to a building of that magnitude, we wouldn't have had what happened on June the 14th last year that happened.
So it's recently come to light that some people have exploited the disaster for their own gain. There are reported 8 cases of fraud where people have claimed money for the following disaster, including 47-year-old Joyce Musakeri, who claimed her husband died in the fire in order to gain food, clothing and hotel accommodation worth £19,000. It's said that if she hadn't been caught, she could have claimed up to £200,000. How do you feel about the fact that some people are using this horrific event to their own benefit?
Joy's specific case was quite bizarre, because she was coming to survivor residence meetings after the fire, and to be brutally honest, I've never seen her in the building before that. But at that sort of time, you don't really sort of come to a conclusion. You don't start asking these sort of questions about, did you actually live in the tower or something like that. But I would say that people were a little bit weary of her, because from the outside point of view, no one's really had contact with her, and we're quite a sort of close sort of different sort of background of communities, different ethnic groups, different sort of races, all under sort of one sort of building. So it was quite bizarre, the fact that we sort of saw what Joyce actually done. And I'm glad that people like that have been named and shamed sort of. And I feel like it's kind of disgusting, the fact that people are trying to get something out of such a bad situation for people that money could have gone to. Mm-hmm. So I think it's quite disgusting, to be brutally honest with you.
Would you mind telling us a little bit more about your experience of the fire on the actual night?
Yeah, of course. So I literally woke up. So the fire actually started at about, I think it was 12:55 at night, and I literally woke up at, let's say about 1:45. And the only reason why I woke up was because I heard people screaming down the bottom of the building. So me being me, I literally woke up and looked outside the window just to see what was actually happening, because people were screaming, "Don't jump, stay in your flats." So I was a bit weary. I thought maybe someone might be trying to jump off the building or something like that. But it was only when I literally went to my front door and opened it, and it was pitch black as smoke, and the smoke was so thick that I put my whole hand out, and I couldn't see the end of my hand, that I actually realised that, okay, it's a fire. But even at that sort of point, I didn't actually know how sort of severe the fire actually was until I literally, finally, got out of the building. At that time, I was still thinking to myself, it'd probably be a kitchen fire or a flat fire. The fire brigade will sort it, because there's been many fires in the past in the building, and they've always been self-contained inside one specific flat where the fires actually started. So I didn't really make too much notice of it, shut my front door, literally went back into my bedroom. And as I was going back into my bedroom, I literally saw smoke come underneath my front door. And then I started thinking to myself, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I shut my bedroom door now, and then I got all my dirty and clean clothes and just literally stuffed it underneath my door to try and prevent the smoke coming underneath my front door, underneath my bedroom door. And I literally just sat on my bed and I just said to myself, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. I was thinking to myself, maybe the fire brigade will sort it out. It won't be a problem. But then I literally, for like a second, something told me I have to get out of the building because I don't know what's happening. So I literally just went back to the front door, opened it, pitch black of smoke. Obviously, again, literally had to put my my sort of fleece over my nose to try and stop the smoke, inhaling so much smoke. I was banging on people's doors on my floor. No one was answering the door. And then I was inhaling quite a lot of smoke, coughing quite severely. So I took the decision to literally go down the stairs, went to the next floor down, again banging on people's doors. No one was answering the door. And also another point was the fire alarms weren't going off, which made it even worse and more bizarre. I literally went down to the fourth floor, and as I was going down to the fourth floor where the fire actually started, the fire brigade were going up the stairs and they were wearing like breathing apparatus, and they told me, just get out of the building as quickly as you can. And it was only when I got out the building and I looked above my left shoulder and I literally saw the whole practically 3 sides of the building on fire, that it literally hit home. It felt like a sort of dream, felt like a nightmare that I was going to wake up in a minute from. But even till today, it just literally haunts me because it was just so hard to take, so hard to see people, kids with torches at the windows, screaming, and yeah, it was just a really bad experience, and it sort of will stay with me for the rest of my life.
How do you feel about the response from the fire department and perhaps large charities, smaller charities, and the local community in general?
Okay, so I feel I don't blame the fire brigade whatsoever. I think they've done an amazing job that night. I think they put themselves at risk in terms of the fire, put themselves in situations where they shouldn't have had to put themselves in situations to try and save as many lives as they possibly could. But I feel like in Britain there's so many sort of cuts to public funding, such as the policing, the fighters, fire brigade, stuff like that, and I think that all played a sort of influence on that night in particular. Because if the fire brigade were probably maybe more well equipped than what they were that night, then maybe the fire might have been contained when it was just a kitchen fire instead of it engulfing the whole side of a building in less than half an hour. So I feel from the fire brigade point of view, I think they were let down by the government. I feel local charities, they opened their doors while the fire was still happening that same night to residents from the tower to give them sort of a shelter for the night, food, drink, water, sort of stuff like that, which was amazing from the local community side. I think sort of the bigger charities started coming involved, like the Red Cross and stuff, about 5 days after. And I think the reason they got on board was because the government's response was really slow. I mean, we had the Prime Minister, she came down that same day the fire was actually happening on June the 14th, and just had a look at the building and literally drove off, and that caused a lot of sort of conflict in our area. And she wasn't really liked in the area after that. She wasn't really welcome. We didn't really want to make her welcome to actually come back to the area again after that, because even till today it's taken her a year to apologise for not meeting survivors first time she came down, which I find disgusting. I think the Red Cross response was obviously okay in terms of they weren't the first there to respond. They got there probably 3 or 4 days after the fire, but they did do as much as what they possibly could at the time to reassure people, give them health checks, sort the housing sort of out, because all these sort of things were brought under the Red Cross's sort of built. So I think from the general response was sort of local sort of charities and local communities, I think that was amazing. But I think from the broader community, in terms of the bigger charities, the government, the response was really slow.
Are you highly critical of some of the volunteers who perhaps didn't treat the tower with respect, or feel as or were maybe taking selfies outside the tower for tourists who were coming to look by? Was it?
So yeah, it sort of got to the stage following weeks after, like, it's, from my personal opinion, it seemed like a circus. I mean, a lot of people, and this is where a lot of survivors and bereaved family, we sort of differ in terms of opinion. Some people, like myself, didn't want people to take pictures and selfies and video the tower, because a lot of life has been lost in that building, so we should respect that. But at the same time, there were other people, other survivors, other bereaved members that thought that maybe we should sort of we should let people take selfies, people take this, because at the end of the day, it's the negligence of the government and the local council are the reasons why we're like this. And that building's obviously how it was for months after, how it wasn't uncovered. I think it just hit home when people came to the area, and actually, you don't even know, they literally come to the area and actually saw that building. It's the 21st century, and Great Britain is meant to be one of the sort of most powerfulest and one of the most developed sort of countries in the world. But yet something like this has happened on the doorstep of it. So I think it's a bit of mixture of both. But how I feel, I thought the tower should have been covered and it should have been respected for the people that lost their life.
Yeah. So has this prompted you to do any charity work of your own, or awareness raising, and then perhaps any more talks like the one you did yesterday?
I don't know about talks, because I feel I was a little bit under pressure. I don't really like being under that sort of spotlight. But in terms of charities and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, I was one of the people that were literally, after the fire, my foster mum sort of works in a sort of, my foster mum was sort of working, sort of making packages, sending food to people and like survivors in hotels, and I was helping her with any way in which I could. So the first couple of days after, I wasn't just sitting in my hotel room like grieving about what happened. I was literally helping hands-on in any way possible. If it was just literally taking water to survivors in sort of hotels, or it was just literally helping with delivering food to survivors, I was there firsthand. And I think, yeah, in the future, I mean, I would like to maybe do a little bit more charity work towards sort of charities, maybe towards mental health in sort of our community, because there was 12,000 people that have been affected by the fire and have needed sort of counselling or therapy after seeing what they did that night.